And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Gabe Poirot, who had a near-death experience due to a skateboarding accident. Gabe, thanks for joining us and welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a little more than 4 years ago that I died and left my body and saw the truth about eternity. And I'm so honored to be here on the show.
Well, we are excited to have you, Gabe. And what happened? Were you on a half pipe?
Yeah, you'd think so, right? I was riding 30 miles per hour on my electric skateboard with my buddies. We were racing down the road. I hit a bump in the middle of the road, flipped off, and immediately cracked my skull in half. My lungs failed. They filled with blood and vomit. And immediately I actually left my body. And my friend actually held my postured body in his arms. Anyone that knows what happens to a body when it medically dies, it is a term that I don't know if I can pronounce, but rigor mortis. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it, but I do know what I saw as I looked at my own body. It completely went rigid. It completely went posture. And I'm looking, but it's wild though, because even though my body was dead, I wasn't dead. I was fully alive. I finally had an awareness of senses that I had never experienced before, a dimension that I had never experienced before. And I'm looking at my own body and I'm just thinking to myself, wow, that was me. But truly that isn't me, because who I am is looking at my body. So it was an immediate just understanding that my body was just a glove. It truly was just a shirt that I wore to be on the earth. But who I truly was soon to be suctioned up into the light. And I knew that this light that I was being suctioned into wasn't calling me to just a destination. This heaven that I was going to wasn't just a place. I knew that this heaven was a person. There was just this deep understanding, this deep awareness that I was about to encounter someone that I had never encountered truly before. I knew about him, but I knew that I was about to come face to face with reality himself, the truth himself.
Did you feel the impact of hitting the ground, or were you already out of your body?
It immediately happened. It was just black and white. It was just as soon as we hooked around the curve, I was on the skateboard, and then immediately I flipped off and I was gone. It was just, it literally was in a moment.
And the reason I ask this because many times near-death experiencers actually don't feel the trauma. They're gone before.
Yeah, I have no trauma from this incident, actually, which is pretty wild considering how serious it was. I mean, I literally medically died. They called in the ER, they called in the ambulance and resuscitated me. But then even then, I didn't come back. For 18 days, I was in a coma and teetering back before life and death. They were talking about me in the past tense. All hope was gone. But I actually didn't see my body in the hospital at the time. I just saw my body right there in the street. And then it was soon thereafter that I was suctioned up by this light and I was pulled through the second heaven. And I peripherally was aware of the warfare that occurs in the second heaven. The civil war is what I call it. The fallen angels and the interbreeds and their influences over humanity. And it was like a puppet master. It was like a super dark thing. Like, but you're just so aware of like, wow, things started to make sense, because before this, you try to logically make sense of why countries and people do things certain ways, and why history has been the way it has, and it just doesn't make sense. But after this, things made sense. It was never people in the first place, and we think that humanity just invented the level of evil, when the truth is we have been more influenced by the second heaven than people realize. So as I'm being suctioned up through the second heaven, this light is what I describe as a magnet. I remember just the closer I got to this light, the more everything else just burned off. It just burned away, and I was just plucked out from the earth.
You said earlier that you had other senses that you didn't have before. What are those senses?
It's challenging to put in the English language, but it's actually pretty fascinating. Of course, we know the 7 senses that we have down here on this earth, but as I was suctioned up, the 7 senses each had a manifold detail to each of them. So my smell had 7 senses in of itself then, and then times 77, 7 times 77 times 7 again. It kept multiplying. So the senses would get deeper and more detailed. And my sight, I saw a definition that is beyond description, similar to, you compare the first television that came out in the 1900s, whenever it did, compared to now, the 4K little iPhone is like not even close. Like the difference is just extraordinary. I described like that times 1,000, because every sense comes alive. If you think this life down here in this earth is real, you've seen nothing. Because for where I was, it was the realest experience I've ever had. And as I'm brought before this city wasn't just an urban destination. Again, it can't even be described as a location, because in this city, he is left, right, up, down. The light himself is not a visible thing. It's not just a thing you see. This light is a person, and there's no escape. A soldier free falling into an ocean of liquid love. I found myself brought before his presence. And when I tell you that every ounce of heaven speaks of him, it has a hymn. Every ounce of heaven sings. Every inch of heaven has a proclamation. There's not only a hymn, but there's a song. The trees in the forest and the leaves will blow with the wind, and they'll say, "Worthy is the Lamb." They'll sing, "Worthy is the Lamb. Worthy is the Lamb." And the rivers of life will receive it, and the waves will go back and forth and sing, "Worthy is the Lamb. Worthy is the Lamb. Worthy is the Lamb." And then the waves will crash onto the shore. The sand will receive it and sing, "Worthy is the Lamb." The flowers, the colors, the animals, like animals that I had never seen before on the earth, and they were beautiful. And people ask me, dogs, cats, what about them? Of course they're in heaven, but like they're dogs and cats in heaven that I had never seen on the earth. Like they're beyond description. And they do talk as well. And people will look at a dog or cat on earth and say, "Oh, I feel like I'm talking to them, but I can't hear them talk back to me." Like, but in heaven, like everyone has a voice. Like it's beautiful, and everyone just sings a hymn of his glory, and they all point to him. You look at everything and you just say, "Wow, he's beautiful. He's beautiful. He's beautiful." Every person in heaven, you'll look at them and you'll say, "Wow, he's beautiful," because you see the light and you see the effects of the light on every inch. And so as I'm brought to the center of the city, which is where he is, it was like he had waited his entire life just to meet with me. It literally felt like all of heaven just stood at attention of, wow, the one he loves is here. Like I sincerely thought heaven had made a mistake, because when I was brought before his presence, at best, I thought I could be an acquaintance. At best, I thought, I could maybe be a friend. I was his own brother. I was his own family. He looked at me as if I was his only one and only. Like I was everything to him. And I was so concerned that the list of all my mistakes was going to be pulled up, the list of all my wrongs. And I will say, on the earth, I had accepted the price of salvation. I was born again before this experience. I knew about him, but there's a difference between knowing about the truth versus meeting the truth himself, like the truth as a person. And as my head goes down to the ground, he picks up my face. And in the moment where I was so there, like this place is so holy, it's so reverent. I didn't feel entitled to anything. I knew the hypocrisy that I had lived on the earth. I knew the addictions and the mistakes that I had made. And I had just already accepted. I was like, you know what? If he tells me I'm not accepted here, like I'll understand. Like I won't even blame him, because I don't deserve anything. And he picks up my face, Jeff, and he says, "Gabriel, why are you concerned about that which is paid for?" And he shows me the wounds in his hands. And they had a name. They had a depth. Gabriel. I did it for you. I did it for you. I paid the price for you. And as I looked into those wounds, they were as deep as the east is from the west. Exactly how the Bible says. how far our sins are removed from us. The spear in his side had a name. He did it for Gabriel. He did it for me. Every crown of thorns that went inside of his head, he did it for me. So I'm just overwhelmed with just such love that he's not considering whether or not he loves me. He's not considering whether or not he accepts me. He's not considering what he thinks of me. He is love to me. He is himself to me. And that can never change. That can never be lost because he is never going away. And so it's his very personhood. And then as he looked at me and as I looked at him, I saw me and him and me. And as he is, so am I, the great I am. And he showed me so many things. He took me to the clock of the entire universe. And he showed me the truth about what he thought, about how he chose me before the entire planets were made, just as the Bible says. What do you know? In Ephesians, before the entire worlds were made, he chose us in him. And I was just so overwhelmed. I truly was speechless. And it's challenging to say this testimony in English because he didn't speak to me in audible words. He spoke right to my heart, like he was speaking to me, but it wasn't audible. It was heart to heart. He was even deeper than heart to heart. And he knew exactly what I was thinking, and I was communicating to him and he was communicating to me, but it was a perfect unity. It was a beauty that I had never experienced before. He spoke the language of my heart, unlike anyone I've ever talked to on the earth. And he has a personality. His height was about, I say 5'11". However, I believe he meets everyone right face to face, eye to eye. I believe to those who are 4 feet, he'll meet them at 4 feet. If you're 7 feet tall, he'll meet you at 7 feet. Like he meets you eye to eye, face to face, and there's no hiding. There's no escape. And it reminded me, it made sense to me how God must have spoken to Adam. Now, while I didn't see the Heavenly Father, I don't believe anyone can see the Father in return. I've never heard actually an NDE testimony where anyone has seen the Father. I knew he was there, but I was not able to look at him. But it reminded me of how the Father must have talked to Adam. There was no Hebrew or English or Spanish language back in that day. He talked to Adam spirit to spirit because he is spirit, like he is love. And I saw exactly how the Father looked at Jesus is how he looked at me. And that's why I wanted to alert all of heaven that they must be mistaken me, because he's looking at me as if I'm Jesus himself with the same love, the same passionate pursuit. And I'm just overwhelmed. And he showed me how his love didn't need humanity. Back in the day, back before everything, there truly was nothing. There was nothing. And he had everything already. He had it all. And his love, though, had had creatures and servants and those who would listen to his word, but his love wanted not just even a friend, not just a servant. His love wanted family, his own, that he could not just talk with, but he could not just talk to, but that he could talk with, that it would be a conversation, a relationship, a covenant. That's who he wanted. And so he thought of me. He thought of you. And love as a seed or a baby in an egg can grow out of its egg. It just outbursts. The love that he is outburst and just erupted into creating me and you, into creating us. Like we are the offspring of love. He is love. And I'm just overwhelmed because I saw the truth of how he had always thought of me. And it literally was from the very dust of the earth that he took his finger and he said, I'm going to make a Gabriel. and he breathed upon the dust, and he created Adam, and he created me and you, Jeff. He created all of us just from the very dust of the earth. And he showed me many other timelines as well. Yeah.
What did Jesus look like?
His hair was, I would say, it was burning with fire. His eyes, right? Like eye to eye, there's no escape. And so it is challenging to describe anything else, because when you look at him eye to eye, there's no escape. But I did notice like his facial structure was very deep, yet he was 33, yet eternity at the same exact time. He was both Middle Eastern, so a little darker skin toned and very, manly, but at the same time, he was still the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Like he was dark, yet fire at the same time. He was black and white at the same time. He was every spectrum of living color, all alive. He was 5'11". His hair was about medium length, I would describe, not super long, not super curly, not straight either. And he doesn't play around. He doesn't play games. He rolls up his sleeves. He doesn't try to get done what he speaks. He already has done what he speaks. Like he has a personality to him as well. Don't get me wrong. Like he was stern, and he's like speaking with me, but he also has a personality. Like it was so fascinating because he looked like love, truly, if I could put one word to it. And he definitely didn't look like most TV shows and movies and churches will portray him as. In fact, he looked quite the opposite of the Jesus I had seen on the earth, especially through churches and religions.
Did he give you a message for humanity for when you returned?
Yeah, for sure. So he was showing me these different timelines, and I described especially two specific timelines. I saw Moses actually, and the reason why he showed me Moses is because he was revealing to me the importance of how we understand his viewpoint of us and who we are in him. And it was so beautiful because I saw Moses and I saw Elisha. And, it sometimes actually, I wrote this down because it helps me, it helps me with the memory of it a lot, because it was just so much all in one. But I wanted to read this to you. When Jesus took me on this timeline, I saw Moses in the midst of all of his failures and defeats. And when God told Moses to go, I'm sending you to Pharaoh, you must lead my people out, I saw Moses at the burning bush, and Moses still wasn't getting what God was putting down. What he said next is what so many of us feel often: who am I? But Moses protested to God, who am I? Moses' every objection was met with, if I. But then God thunderously responded, I am who I am. And I saw that burning bush, and I saw Christ in that burning bush. And I saw that when Moses saw Christ in that bush, he saw himself. And God replied to Moses, I am who I am. Say this to the people of Israel. I am has sent you. See, when Moses saw God for who he truly was, when Moses saw Christ for who he truly was, he was then able to see himself for who he truly was. And it was after that Moses went on to deliver the people of Egypt, because he saw the eyes of God. And so the reason why God showed me this timeline, and he also showed me Elisha, and I described this in my book, 18 Days in Heaven. I saw how Elisha wasn't just surrounded by chariots of fire, but Jesus was the chariot himself. And it was so beautiful because like every sentence in the Bible came to life to me, like the entire timeline. He showed me all of creation. And at this moment, on page 114, I saw on top of an intense hillside the chief chariot of fire. Love was there. On his white horse, he hadn't just sent his servants of fire. He was the fire himself. I learned how he waits on us to trust him enough to allow him to fight our battles. And I honestly, Jeff, just truly started to understand, like my entire life, I had tried to fight my own battles and make it on my own. And I saw in the life review, specifically a library in heaven, where there were these books about my life. And literally in this life review, I saw how Christ was always there. He was always extending his hand. There was no escape. And he was always fighting for me. He was always on my side. Like grace could not be outrun. I could not hide from mercy himself. And the message he told me actually, so I'm spending this moment with him, and it was 18 days on the earth. And that's why I do title my book 18 Days in Heaven. But truthfully, my time with him was only a couple minutes in heaven. It went by just like this. And I saw so many things, but one of them was as I never want to leave. And from the moment you're with him, you make the decision you never want to leave being with him. However, he looked at me, and after he had showed me all these timelines, the beginning to the end, after he had showed me what he had always thought of me and so much more, he said, Gabriel, you must go back and you must tell my family who I really am. Bring them back to me. And he says, I'm sending you back, and you must tell them I'm coming back soon. And when he said that, it thunderously rolled in my heart. He's coming back soon. He's coming back. And when he said that as well, I quickly realized when he does come back, and even the Jesus I encountered, like we learn about Jesus as a lamb, but the Jesus I encountered was a lion as well. He was 2 in 1. There's no playing around with him. He's not nice. He's coming back, and it's not going to be the Jesus most people expect. And right now we're still in a little bit of grace, but I'm telling you, when he does come back, the door of grace for the earth and all of creation is about to be shut. And that's why it's so important we see his grace now. That's why it's so important. The Bible says today is the day of salvation, because there's coming a day where there will be no more grace left for all the earth. And he is going to make the new earth. And as he spoke that to me, he revealed to me the truth of prayers, and that there truly is no such thing as unanswered prayer. I saw the prayers of those on the earth that were praying over my body. They were speaking words of life, and I saw those words create these structures, these bridges, and they literally went up right into heaven. And he gathered those prayers himself. And there's this golden bowl in heaven, and Jesus presents those prayers himself in that golden bowl, and then presents the bowl to the Father. And the Father answers every prayer. Now, whether or not we immediately see it on the earth, whether or not we immediately feel it right away, I'm here to tell everyone, never forsake knocking on the door. Never forsake praying his word out loud. Never forsake speaking his word and presenting your requests, your petitions to the Father, because every single one of them are gathered in heaven where truth is. And whether it immediately manifests on the earth or not, give him praise and give him thanks. And as I'm seeing this, I saw these same structures, and he sent me back through the same structures and these bridges, highways, I call it. And I went from the third heaven back to the first, and I went on to fully miraculously recover. And I'll send you photos of my testimony, or, I mean, you might already have them. If you go look at any other place I've shared them as well, you can have them. But my skull was miraculously healed. I woke up from the coma. I walked. My memory came back miraculously, which is what the doctors never expected. They said I would be a mental vegetable for the rest of my life. And so within around a couple months, I had fully recovered and have just been living to tell the testimony ever since.
Can you tell us about the 3 heavens and what is in each one?
Sure. So, well, I say 3 too, but there's many dimensions. And even scientists have talked about how they've discovered 11 dimensions, but the first heaven is the blue sky. It's the weather. It's what you see with your eyes. It's what manifests in the physical. Second heaven is the spiritual realm behind the first heaven. This is where both the fallen angels and angels war over the words of human beings, the free will moral agents. And I saw the banks over humans. Specifically, unforgiveness is actually something that fallen angels feast on. They eat the hearts of those walking in unforgiveness, and they'll repeat the abuse and trauma that those have been through. As long as they hold that unforgiveness in their hearts, it'll only continue eating at your soul. I saw that, like the banks, they work those banks. And that's why it's very important we watch over our hearts. We choose to forgive. We choose to bless. We choose to be conduits of glory. We choose to be conduits of the love of the Father. And we keep things clear. We keep things clear on our end when we do that. And in the second heaven is civil war. It's It's a nasty place, to be frank. However, the light prevails, but it is definitely war. Third heaven is where he is. It's where there's not an ounce of darkness or sin. And that's why Lucifer, even before this entire universe, he actually fell because he was filled with pride and he started to walk outside of love. And as soon as 1%, as soon as he's inched in that direction, he was cast out of heaven. The third heaven.
So in the second heaven, is it demons fighting angels?
Well, demons and angels are very broad terms. Angels can be described under a lot of different labels and terms, actually. There's a lot of different types of angels and there's a lot of different types of demons. So, but yeah, to tell you a broad answer, absolutely. And that's where Daniel described the war and how it describes him waiting. I believe it was like 28 days when his prayers were given, and it describes how the archangels were fighting and all those such things. That's a description of that encounter too.
So as you were passing through, did you see the battle occurring in the second heaven?
I was peripherally aware of it. I didn't see intimate details. And I wasn't even there for long, to be frank. I was really pulled through the second heaven, but I absolutely was aware that the warfare that occurs is so serious. And if people really understood more about the second heaven, man, they would live a very different life. We are taught to just be so tolerant, and we are taught to just be so allowing of thoughts and feelings and even people. We are just taught to be so tolerant. And if people really saw the truth about the second heaven, they would live a very different life. They would especially watch what they watch with their eyes and their movies and their TV shows, because there's portals that open up. They would watch what they listen to. There's way more portals from the second to the first than people are aware of.
Can you describe in a little more detail what the city looked like and the library, and if they had names?
Yeah, for sure. So specifically, there's many libraries in heaven. There's many monuments, and it's so fascinating because there's an entire library just with my name on it, and it's all the books of moments that Christ himself has written about my life. But it was a perspective that I had never seen before, and it was even in my mistakes and in my failures. He wasn't even I was so forgiven that my failures didn't even exist. And in the moments of my mistakes was only his grace. Even in the moments where maybe I would be saying something horrible to a middle school student, a fellow student of mine, I would be cussing them out or just being a bully or something. Like instead that failure wasn't there, but instead it was just his grace written. And his grace said, one day he'll speak for me and he'll speak of my glory. And I'll use his words to change many lives. And sure enough, it ended up coming to pass. But like this book in heaven was written before my life, right? So it's just so fascinating because his grace was just in every ounce. And so like the Bible really finally made sense to me after this encounter, because when it's written, all things work out together for good to those who love him, I saw the truth of that.
Do you get the feeling that you were judging yourself during your life review and while you were in the library, not Jesus?
Yeah, I would say it definitely wasn't. Jesus wasn't condemning me in the life review. He wasn't coming at me. Like in my life review, I just saw his grace in every ounce, every corner. And I still it was two things all in one, right? Like I still was aware in my life review that like in my own ability, I had no chance. I stood no chance, but his grace had already beaten me to it. Like his grace had already beaten me to the punch. And I did write this down in chapter 3. I saw my entire life review in a flash. It was like a film recording replay, which took all the years I had lived and played it out in just a moment. I understood that I had only seen and experienced a tiny fraction of what love had done for me the entire time. And so again, it was a different perspective on every moment of life.
Some of my near-death experience guests describe seeing a city on the other side. Some will say it's gold. Some will say it's like crystals or glass. What did you see?
Yeah, for me, the light I was suctioned into wasn't just a destination. It was literally like an entire presence. So for me, when I was brought into this city, it was I peripherally. It wasn't just like an urban city though. Like there was everything there. Like there's the mansions, there's the golden streets, there's the pearls, there's the monuments, the libraries, the mountains, and the expanse. Like there's both snow and water and light all in one. Like there's everything. But truthfully, I didn't see all the details of the peripheral. I more just was I saw him. Like when I saw the city, I saw him. And even as I'm remembering the moment, I could barely describe everything else but him because I was so captured. I was so transfixed. It was almost like, and even people ask me, what did angels look like? I don't remember staring into an angel because there's a reverence. There's like, if I would have stared, I know what that angel would have told me. He would have said, why are you looking upon me? Look upon him. And everything there just points to him. Like it's so beautiful.
How did you change once you got back?
I value every conversation I have with every person because I recognize the importance of the one. And I know how he's just waiting for the one. And you know, Jeff, if this interview was just between me and you, I would still do it exactly the same because it's not about the thousands that are watching. It's just about you because Jeff, you were the one he did everything for. And, you know, I even things that don't work out, I actually rejoice. You know, last week I flew all the way to New York City and was going to be on an interview, but it got canceled an hour before we were going to air. And you'd think that, you know, I would be super frustrated, but instead I just said, oh, well, thanks for the opportunity. And I'm sure I'll see you again soon. So, you know, things that maybe don't always work out. I know how God's always going to get the glory. So like I rejoice in all things. So, you know, I also a couple of days ago was on an interview and the guy told me that the video, once we got done, he's like, oh my goodness, man, I'm so sorry. The video wasn't on the entire time. And you'd think, oh, you're going to be frustrated. And I told him, I said, no, it's fine, man. We'll just do it again. I could talk about this testimony thousands of times. I'll say it the same way. Like I'm never going to get tired of telling people what happened.
Did you notice that you had any new abilities or gifts after your experience?
I don't describe them as new gifts because the gifts were always given to me, right? However, gifts were definitely opened and I can see in the spirit a lot differently now. It's just, it just comes. It's just, it is. It's like, I'll look at someone and just see their eyes and kind of just tell them, oh yeah, you know, like a year or two ago, I was at a pizza shop and the Lord told me to tell a man that he has more influence than he realizes. I looked him right in the eyes. I told him that. Well, come to find out a couple months later, his wife reached out to us at the ministry and said, hey, we'd been watching your YouTube videos and stuff. And then we saw you at the pizza shop that day. And he didn't know this, but he was actually struggling with alcohol and our family was about to be ruined because of it. Like things were going down the drain. But ever since you shared that word with him, he soon thereafter stopped drinking alcohol and it's saved our marriage and family and children. And we just want to say thank you so much. And so it's just, it's situations like that where, you know, even the Lord will tell me words. I was at a hotel one day and the Lord told me, he speaks to my heart because I know him now as a father. Like I know him as a friend. I know him as just someone I can run to no matter what I'm going through. And he speaks to me that the guy that checked us in, his dad had just died this past year. And that's a pretty intense word. You don't share that with a stranger, right? You know, but I knew it was the truth. I knew it had happened. And this is someone I never met before. I told him, I said, man, I want to tell you what happened to your dad this past year. It wasn't God's hand. Like God didn't do that. God loves you. God's good. Don't blame God for what the enemy took in your life. And he bawled his eyes out and he went to the back room and he was touched by God. And so I'll have situations like that a lot. And even now I'm running a YouTube channel full time and traveling and sharing my testimony and it's touching millions of souls. And I'm just so thankful. And I'm so thankful even in my book, it's miraculous that I was able to describe my encounter the way I did. I was never an author growing up. I made fun of English class. Yet as I'm writing this book, he's giving me these words and helping me put it all together. And it's just, It's like glorious. And so my gifts came alive. I didn't get any new gifts, but my gifts definitely came alive because, again, I've always been chosen. I've always been his, but they definitely were unveiled, I would say.
While you were in the city, did you see anybody that you knew here on Earth that had already crossed over?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I didn't see them like face to face. Like I didn't like talk with them, but I did know that they were there. But Jeff, people ask me what family members were there in heaven, and I respond, I tell them my entire family is in heaven, because in heaven there are your family members that you had on the earth. Maybe like my grandma's there. I know she is, and like I had, like there's like you still have memories of like what God did for you on the earth, and it's glorious, right? Like it's beautiful. But everyone there, like everyone there is just as close as anyone else. Like we literally are all family. We literally are all just offspring of love. In him we live and move and breathe and have our very being. And so, but also, your people ask me, well, can my loved ones see me? Well, first of all, everyone in heaven is your loved one. But second of all, of course they can. For the libraries that I witnessed, there's actually portals, and they gather in those libraries. They read the book of your life, and it speaks of his glory. And they, as they read the book, there's portals where they watch over you, but they see it from the Lord's perspective.
Do you fear death?
No, not at all. No, because I'm never going to die. Even when I did die medically, I wasn't dead. I was alive. And Jesus actually said, those who believe in me will never die. So, and actually death is the root of all fear when you think about it, because it's the enemy's greatest tool that he uses to get people afraid. But, that root of death was defeated on the cross. And for anyone who truly believes that, you're not going to be afraid to die, because now you might have feelings of fear, or you might have temptations to fear, but you shouldn't listen to that, because death has been defeated and we have nothing to fear. Now, if you haven't accepted the price that was paid, then you probably should be afraid of death, because it's not going to go well. It's just as real as heaven is. There's a very real hell. I didn't experience the depths of hell, but I was very aware that it was real. And so, if you haven't accepted the price of salvation, then you probably should be afraid. But if you have accepted the price, then you're covered. And also salvation, people ask, how do I truly know if I'm saved and going to heaven? Well, first of all, it's not about going. The purpose of salvation is not just going to a destination. The purpose of salvation is not going to heaven. The purpose of salvation is heaven coming to you now by faith, and you bringing heaven to earth, right? Like the purpose of salvation is that you would bring many back to his family, included in that. And so with that being said, it's not about even people always rush to a prayer and getting people to say words out loud. And don't get me wrong, that's very important and that's valuable. Speaking and your heart is very important. But truthfully, it's not even just about words you throw out. It's about a decision you make in your heart to accept the price he paid, to accept the truth of the cross, and to receive your price being paid. That is salvation.
Earlier, you spoke about how God referred to himself as I am. And I believe you also said that Jesus referred to himself the same way, and that we were all one. I may not have that clear. Can you expand on that for us?
Yeah, for sure. I categorized this, and I saw both Moses and Elisha, how they had seen the great I am in their experiences. But for Moses specifically, Moses protested to God, "Who am I?" So notice the words, okay? Like everything is cause and effect. I saw in heaven. Moses protested to God, "Who am I to appear before Pharaoh? Who am I to lead the people of Israel out of Egypt?" God answered, I will be with you. This is your sign that I am the one has sent you. He answered every one of Moses's objections of who am I? God answered with, I am. Why? Why did God answer with I am? Because God was revealing to Moses who he is in him and who Moses is in God and who God is in Moses. It's a mirror. It's a beauty. Moses's every objection started with if I didn't have a speech impediment, if I was taller, stronger, smarter, more popular, But then God thunderously responded with, I am who I am. And it was thereafter that Moses went on to lead the people out of Egypt. And, Galatians 2:20 teaches us our old identity has been crucified with Christ, no longer lives. Now the essence of this new life is no longer ours, but it's the anointed one living his life through us.
Does that mean that God created us from dirt or dust, as you said earlier, and then he put a piece of himself within us?
He put a piece of himself in the dirt. And that's what made us so beautiful. That's what made us such a miracle. That's what made your life a miracle, my life a miracle. Anyone that is still alive on this earth, ever been alive, is a miracle. Just as much a miracle as mine, coming back from death. If you have breath in your lungs, you're a miracle. You're the breath of God upon dirt, upon the very dust of the earth. And he literally put himself in us. We exist as a crystal light of the crystal. Love himself. And that's why if we ever walk outside of love, you're walking outside of your own DNA. You're walking outside of your own original plan. And you'll feel a contradiction, and you'll feel so many things. Everything evil exists outside of love.
If you had a friend that was grieving over the loss of a loved one, what type of advice would you give?
Well, it depends. First of all, we don't lose anyone. Every spirit is an eternal spirit. So that's first of all. Second of all, those spirits who do know the light and those spirits who had accepted the price of salvation, you don't lose them. And so I do, comfort them. And I do understand that their feelings that they lost their loved one are very real. And I'm not discounting that those feelings are real or not, but I have to tell them the truth. You didn't lose them. You'll see them again very soon. And they didn't lose you. They're not even sad. They're about to see you in a couple seconds. Heaven's time. So it really is. And for those who maybe did have a loved one that didn't know or didn't receive the salvation of the cross, who didn't receive the price he paid, I encourage them with, first of all, don't just assume that they immediately went to hell. The hand of grace still extends to people, and you're not the judge, so you should never assume that anyone went to hell just because maybe they didn't live a life you were expecting, or they weren't what you were wanting them to be. You should never assume that. Now, hell is a real place. It was originally created for Satan and the ones who listened to him. It was never created for humanity. And the only reason why there are any humans in hell is because they, of their own free will and their own responsibility, have rejected the gift of salvation through Jesus Christ. But even, there's a lot of encounters, even that people will testify of, where they weren't Christian, like atheists, Hindus, and they died. And still, as they were going into the darkness, the hand of Christ reached out to them, and they had a choice as to whether or not they would receive him.
What's the title of your book again, and where can people find out more about it?
Absolutely. So it's 18 Days in Heaven. And if they order it now, or as soon as they see this, there's actually a special discounted link up on Amazon, and I'll send that over to you as well. And it officially comes out in the first week in April. But again, if they see this in March, they can order it now and get the special discount as well. But in every bookstore, Barnes & Noble, wherever they can buy books, it'll be available as well.
What's your website?
My YouTube channel is where I tell people to visit, and I'm consistently posting on there and sharing words that the Lord is speaking to me about things that are going on, even the Iran war. In fact, 2 weeks ago, Jeff, I prophesied what we're seeing now with Iran. And people can go and look at the evidence of that if they don't believe me. It's just fine. I always tell people, take what I say and bring it back up against the word of God. But yeah, they can visit my YouTube channel. And in fact, I have a special promo. If they pre-order my book now, I'm giving out some free companion books titled The Libraries in Heaven. So they can find details of that just on my most recent YouTube video. Always my description and pinned comment tells details of that.
Have you prophesized the outcome of this war?
Not necessarily, but I did talk about how, again, what's the spirit that is going to raise up in Iran is not a logical spirit. It's not even a spirit you can negotiate with. It's not a spirit that you can reason. It's a demonic spirit that's intent is to take out Israel and the Christians. And it's not something to negotiate with, and war is coming. But the war with Iran is just a tremble war. It's not even the full war that is coming. And so I did talk about that as well.
Who is in charge on the other side that's kind of influencing this war? Is it the devil or some other?
There's definitely specific spirits that have taken Iran, and they seek to manipulate, control, and take out even their own people. And Jezebel has certainly manifested through that nation. And there's a lot of different spirits that I could I don't necessarily know all the exact names to, but there's the princes of the powers of the air for sure.
Earlier you said you saw half-breeds in the second heaven.
But yeah, when I say half-breeds, the Nephilim didn't stop existing after the flood. They're still very much so influencing this world. And even just think about David and Goliath, right? The fact that Goliath was documented after the flood goes to show how the Nephilim, and anyone who doesn't know what Nephilims are, they were where the fallen angels, the Watchers saw the daughters of men in Genesis 6 and took unto them, and they interbred with humanity. And that is why actually now they're also reappearing through the entire agenda that attacks families and gender. It's why it's come back roaring its head. It's because the interbreeds are manifesting again.
If people want to ask you questions, do you have a contact form on your website?
Absolutely. I respond personally to almost every comment on my YouTube channel. I look at almost every single one, pray over every single one. And actually, if they go visit my channel, my email is given on a lot of videos as well. We definitely reach out to many.
Gabe, before we finish up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
Of course. Well, heaven has come to you today. Heaven is not distant. Heaven is as close as a decision you can make in your heart. You can have an encounter with him today. You don't have to crack your skull in half. You can set aside all the distractions, set aside your phone, and get alone with him. Seek him by faith, and you'll be blessed. Amen.
Gabe, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you so much. And thank you for what you do. And 2026 is a very important year. The Lord told me it's the year where I will be among them. And, John 20:26 actually is where Jesus appeared to his disciples. And so we will see a continuation of his very presence among us. And so I tell people, watch out, because he's sneaky. He's going to get you. And whether or not he appears physically before you, you need to be very watchful, because he could just be knocking on the door of your heart.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.